Did you apologize to Donald Trump about Ontario's Anti-Tariff Act?
I did apologize to the president. The president was offended by the act, or by the ad rather, and it's not something I would have done, which is to put in place that advertisement, and so I apologize to him. I'm the one who is responsible in my role as Prime Minister for the relationship with the President of the United States, and the federal government is responsible for the foreign relationship with the U.S. government. So things happen. We take the good with the bad, and I apologize to him.
He viewed the ad with you in advance of it going to air. Since you're the person that's solely responsible for negotiations, did you inform Mr. Ford that this is something that you did not want to go forward with?
Yes.
And what came of that?
Well, you saw what came of it.
You told Doug Ford that he shouldn't air the ad. My question then, the fact that Premier Ford went ahead with the ad, the fact that the Premier of BC wants to put out an ad, fact that the Premier of Manitoba, Wapakonoo, supports Doug Ford's ad, does this show that there is division within Team Canada, that the premiers don't trust you to negotiate?
We have to understand what Team Canada actually is. Team Canada is not, yay, Canada. Team Canada is anti-Team America. Team Canada's chant is screw you, USA. Screw you, USA. That's what Team Canada actually means and stands for in this country, in this context of politics. That's weird. Canada's identity is not, and nationalism is not proud to be Canadian. It's proud not to be American, which is why you're seeing so much narrative, so much news, so much propaganda that's like, hey, screw you, USA, and screw you, Trump, because you may or may not feel this way, but the majority of voters in Canada do feel this way, unfortunately. And I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
I think there is, well, the individuals can speak for themselves, and you know they're practiced in speaking to themselves, and they will speak for themselves. There are other premiers who have a different view in terms of the utility of those ads, and you can speak to them. I'll repeat what the situation is with those who actually have been talking with the Americans and have been negotiating with the Americans. That we start from this position, which it does bear remembering, that we are in a position where 85% of our trade is tariff-free. We, like every other country in the world, okay? Every other country in the world has issues if they produce any of the following: steel, aluminum, automobiles, pharmaceuticals, forest products, with 232, so-called 232 tariffs in the United States. And so that's what we're having discussions with, or that's what we were having discussions with with the Americans. That's where we're negotiating. We were making progress. Those talks are suspended. That's the situation at present. And it has a couple of implications. One of the core implications is it absolutely validates the strategy we have had from day one, which is to focus on the things we can control. Yes, negotiate with the United States. Of course, that's important. But building Canada at home, which is what this budget is going to do. With generational investments, the scale of investment that this country has never seen before, that's what this budget is looking to unlock, and to be building new partnerships with countries around the world. And there is no better place to do that than in the fastest growing part of the world that represents 60% of the global economy. We can adjust for the American component of that, but there's everyone else. So if I take it down to a little more than 40% of the global economy, ex the United States. And those are the discussions we're having. And you can see the traction we're getting. Free trade deal with Indonesia. Free trade talks now launched with Philippines and Thailand, two of our largest. We already have free trade through something called the CPTPP with a number of those other economies. A turning point in our relationship with China. Progress which we have been making with India. Not part of these meetings, so I didn't meet directly with Prime Minister Modi here. The foreign minister, other ministers have been meeting with India. That's what we're doing to build our strength at home first and foremost, build these partnerships abroad, reduce our reliance on the United States. It can't happen overnight, but we're moving very fast.
And that reliance off of the United States, that doesn't mean that we're relying less on the United States to be more independent. Notice how they never say that, right? Relying less off of America to move off of American dependence does not equate to Canada standing on its own 2 feet. Notice how that's never mentioned. Never mentioned. Removing Canada off of American dependence means removing that dependence elsewhere. It's a cup, right? That's what this is. You have a cup of water, okay? It's full of water. If you're pouring it out of the American cup, are you pouring it into your own bowl? No. You're pouring it into other cups. In this case, it's Asia. That's why Carney is so fixated on working on brushing better ties with Xi Jinping and China. And you know what? There are people out there in Canada. There are people that exist in Canada that literally say online, because of these words and this rhetoric being backed by social media, you have actual people, could be your parents, could be your siblings, could be your teachers, could be your spouse. There's people in Canada that think that Canada would be better off of working closer with China than with America because of Trump. And that rhetoric gets backed by our mainstream media, so people believe it. Because when it comes off of CBC and CTV, all of a sudden now it's more legitimized, at least through the lens of progressive liberals. And there's a lot of them in Canada. And so if the media is saying, hey, it's good that we're strengthening our ties with China, who we've caught, not accused, we've caught with actual election interference in this country. But yeah, they're better, right? They're trying to steal from us. They're completely copying everything that the West does, that North America does. They're constantly trying to potentially take over Taiwan. Like, China is not necessarily bad as in like the Taliban bad, but they're certainly not as good as our neighbors, the United States of America. But for some reason, Canada wants to be closer with China than with the United States. That like angers me a little bit. It angers me a little bit. I don't know. Am I missing something? Do I have the right to feel this way? Do you? Well, of course I have the right to feel this way, but do you also feel this way? Because I don't see this as a win for Canada by Canada being closer and better with China. I just don't. I feel like that's a little dangerous.
With respect, Prime Minister, the United States makes up more than 75% of our trade.
I'm well aware of that, yeah.
Yes. You apologize to Donald Trump. He's not going back to the table. He has no interest. So what are you doing? What is your next move, or are you close to striking out?
Very clever. No, I just fouled one off. The count is full, but we're battling like the Jays. The next move is on Tuesday. The next move is the budget. It's the budget for this time. The budget the country needs. The budget that gives us control. See, this is one of the things. We can spend our time watching Truth Social, worrying about the reactions of individual things. We are staying calm, okay? We're focusing on what we can control, which first and foremost is how we build at home. And secondly, with our negotiations with the U.S., when they're on, when they come back on, is what's in the best interest of Canada. Not emotional, what's in the best interest of Canada. They will only agree, the Americans will only agree, as is the case in any trade negotiation, something that also is in the U.S. interest. There are a number of things where those interests align. And we'll wait until they're ready.
Oh my goodness. By the way, this is called the Carney curse, right? Mark Carney went and met with Connor McDavid and the rest of the Edmonton Oilers during their playoffs run, and then they lost. And then Mark Carney went and met with the Jays during the World Series and they lost. I'm just saying, if we're looking at sports objectively as numbers and statistics, the Carney curse is very real. Very, 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 very real. Now we got to take a look at what's going on with mainstream media, because mainstream media is pushing a very dangerous narrative. And that narrative is the fact that Pierre is completely screwed. There's nothing he can do. Of course, that's the narrative, right? Here we go.
I want to bring in CTV News political commentator Scott Reed now with more. Scott, good morning to you. So what are you expecting tomorrow?
Well, just picking up on this story you just ran, whether it's big spending and big investments or efforts to cut back spending, I think the answer is yes. We're going to get both. And that's going to demonstrate both the strength and the vulnerability of this first Carney budget, because the prime minister is going to try to pull off sort of a historic transfer. He's going to say, I'm going to spend less on the day-to-day business of government. So we're going to cut back on all those grants and contributions that go to various things that we fund. We're going to cut back on the number of staff in the federal public service. We're going to cut back on contracts and other expenditures in the public service so that we can take that money and apply it to things that the prime minister deems to be critical to future growth, like massive infrastructure, energy projects. Think 1950s style spending on things like highways and energy infrastructure and ports. I think that's what we're going to see. Now, will Canadians say, all right, well, that's the kind of spending I can get behind? Or will they say, sorry, that's going to inflate the deficit and I'm concerned?
The other fact.
We can't afford more spending. Like, that's the thing, is we're not bringing in record level of investments, and we're not bringing in hundreds of billions or trillions of dollars of investments. Like, Canada's very much suffering, and we're being propped up by synthetic injections of falsehoods and copium by our government. They're just passing the recession along further and further and further. And eventually when the bubble pops, it's going to be really, really bad.
Fascinating aspect to all of this, Scott, is whether or not this bill will pass. Are the Liberals seriously concerned that there will or will not be enough support for this budget, and we could be looking at an election in the offing?
Well, to be unconcerned is to be unprepared. So they're obviously concerned. It's a minority parliament. Every opposition party has rushed to the microphone to say they won't be supporting the government for one reason or another. That does make it challenging. And accidents happen, even in an environment where the public doesn't want an election, where none of the parties really want an election. You can still bump your way into an election, like we saw way back in 1979 with Joe Clark. I don't think there's going to be an election. I don't think the budget will fail. I think at the end of the day, there are enough members of parliament from various opposition parties can abstain or go missing, be absent for the vote, that it will squeak by. But I don't think you're going to see necessarily one of the parties say, all right, we're full bore with the prime minister on this. I do think it's going to be a game of loose fish.
You don't think the Conservatives want an election, Scott?
I don't think the Conservatives want an election. They shouldn't want an election if they're wise. And the reason for it is twofold. First, we haven't seen the worst of what's to come. The economy could very well weaken. Trump's tariffs could take a bigger, deeper bite out of our jobs, out of our growth. And you would think the Conservatives want to wait to see that Mark Carney wears some of that strain before they go to the voters. The second reason is their leader is not as popular as the prime minister. And that's a real challenge for them, because a snap election will put a lot of pressure on the opposition. It will inevitably be round two of the mano-a-mano heavyweight battle between Carney and Poilievre. And you don't want to fight that with one arm tied behind your back. And in terms of public opinion, Poilievre has one arm tied behind his back right now.
Scott Reed for us this morning. Scott is CTV.
That's quite the analysis. That is quite the analysis by what looks to be like school shooter. Doesn't he always look so angry? Just like, just always so freaking angry. There is a lot of trickiness to the situation right now with Canada and America. And you have to be able to put things into context as a freaking analyst on CTV. The reason why Carney's popularity is what it is right now is because he is promising to attack Donald Trump, which a lot of Canadians seem to like. And when that backfires, then he goes, hey, this is why we can't trust the United States, because look at what they're doing to us. So he's literally causing the problem and then selling the solution. It's quite literally poetic to watch. And by political standards, it's like an art form, right, of gaslighting an entire nation. And the liberals are quite good at doing that. Now, I don't mean good as in like morally like the good people. I just mean like if the standard is winning at by any means necessary, include deception, include lying, include gaslighting, include propaganda, then they're good at politicking, I suppose. It's a greasy game, and the liberals are really showing their true colors time and time and time again. And I don't know how people keep falling for it. They get told one day that, yeah, we need to hit Trump where it hurts. And then we get retaliated against. Oh, this is why we can't trust them. This is why we can't trust them. Look what they do to us. You just said you wanted to hit them. You hit them, and now they hit back, and all of a sudden they can't trust us. It reminds me of those grocery store videos during COVID with like the Karens and stuff like that, just freaking out in public. Kind of reminds me of that. That literally captures liberals so well. Anyways, I'd love to know what you guys think down below in the comments about that. Do you think that Pierre can navigate this properly and somehow win over the people that are afraid of America and don't trust America? Let me know what you guys think.